Welcome to another episode of the When to Pick series. Today's video features a very old school jungler, Shen. Jungle Shen is legendary for having been one of the game's most meta-defining champions ever released. He's seen waves of nerfs, reworks, and updates, and has fluctuated between competitively viable to an offshoot choice every now and then. Even so, he's always kept what keeps him unique intact, and is one of the very few junglers that can participate in what is called infinite jungling. Shen is notorious for being the slowest at clearing the jungle, at least from amongst a list of competitive junglers. His speed does get better quickly, but never better than average, at best really. He is one of the best health sustained junglers in the game though, and is entirely free of any sort of buff reliance. He's average at dueling, though he is slightly better at fighting junglers who lack burst. He is a reasonably capable ganker, and he is one of the few junglers who has the capability of performing every type of gank, including global. As it was already mentioned, he is one of the few junglers capable of infinite jungling, and he's the best one at it. Infinite jungling means being able to farm the jungle, or the lane, while still being capable of applying pressure on your opponents, largely thanks to having a global ultimate. This gives Shen an artificial boost in speed and farming power, as other junglers have to waste time traveling or sticking with teammates for them to be able to apply pressure on their opponents, while he can just farm on the other side of the map and show up whenever he needs to. Shen is very effective versus other ganking junglers, especially the slower ones, and eventually even against the faster ones once he obtains his ultimate. Shen is arguably one of the best counter gankers in the game without his ultimate, and the single-handed best counter ganker in the game when he finally obtains it. Shen's taunt is one of the few hard AoE crowd control abilities available to junglers in the game. Shen can either peel off the enemy jungler and laners off his teammate if they get caught together in the AoE and help them escape, or turn the fight around and see his bought some time for his teammate to reposition and be able to fight back. His ultimate allows him to either counter an enemy jungler's gank, an initiation from the enemy laner onto his teammate, or even an assist and an initiation of his own lane mate against the enemy team. Jungle Shen has his obvious downsides. He is slow and can be abused by very fast junglers and invaders. He has a ramp up time before he becomes truly strong, and while he has the tools to eventually fix his deficiencies, it leaves an early game weakness that can be exposed. If it isn't obvious yet, he's pretty weak versus early game compositions and very aggressive compositions. Even his infinite jungling won't do much to help if his opponents are very aggro during the times that his ultimate is on cooldown. The weakness to early game pressure means he's a very risky early pick, even if your opponents may think you'll be tossing him into the lane. He is far better suited as a late pick, as he's a strong pick in a team with high mobility, especially gap closers, and a team more oriented towards poking and kiting. His infinite jungling and late game pushing is far weaker with a team that has weak engage, or against a team with a strong disengage. Picking him later can help you avoid fighting against those teams, or picking into a team that can't take advantage of Shen's abilities. Shen's ultimate grants him a lot of playmaking capabilities, which in turn makes him viable in plenty of team compositions. He excels in protect compositions, especially when protecting teammates that wouldn't immediately die before he gets to teleport in, such as Graves, Ezreal, and Caitlyn. His taunt can also remove all melee opponents from his teammates easily. He is very strong in full engaged team compositions, especially those that are heavy on champions with gap closers, as he can hitch a ride with them using his ultimate and show up next to the enemy MVP target and proceed to gather aggro from his enemies, or he can simply taunt through the enemy front line and gather their focus that way, while his teammates focus the MVP target. Shen excels best in poking team compositions, even though he personally does not contribute any poking power or direct disengage power that doesn't end in his own sacrifice or a counter initiate, but he can split push another lane and join his team whenever he needs to. Simply by split pushing, he can draw aggro from the enemy team and cause them to split up. This will give his teammates a numerical advantage, or at least make it more dangerous for the enemy team to consider a full engage. It puts severe pressure on the enemy team because they either lose a tower to Shen by not sending anyone to fend them off, or they get poked down by Shen's team and unable to engage because they split their team up. And eventually they get forced off the tower they were defending and end up losing it. He is pretty versatile in his itemization. He is oftentimes far better built as a bruiser than anything else, with only one offensive item, usually one that helps him push in some way, while the rest is pure tank. His builds are complemented his split pushing, so he usually builds Static Shift and Sunfire Cape, Sunfire Cape being one of his core items of course. His offensive item can be anything with attack speed, and I already mentioned, preferably it's Static Shift for his AoE clearing and pushing power. The alternative to the Shift is Feral Flare, as it is a strong boost to his jungle clearing power, which is considerably weak, and can do competent damage to enemy champions once it's farmed, although it is weaker at pushing than the Shiv. His other items can be pretty much anything, though preferably it is items that come back with cooldown reduction, so he can use his ultimate more frequently and have less downtime in between bouts of global pressure. Now let's go over some of the things we learned. Shen is a very sustained jungler who is arguably the best counter ganker in the game, even before he has his ultimate. He is the slowest viable jungler in the game, but his infinite jungling can help him make up for any hindrance he had early. He's a very risky first pick as the enemy team can take advantage of his early game weakness, so he's better picked late into champion select. He is strong in all sorts of team compositions such as protect compositions, full engage compositions, but he excels the best at poking compositions, largely due to his ability to split push yet still show up where needed, thus always giving his team a numerical advantage. Although he can do this in almost any team composition and tends to do it anyways, it is considerably stronger in push and poke compositions. While he is very versatile with builds, it is better for him to build in a way that will help him split push later into the game. As a personal recommendation, he's a very challenging jungler due to his early weaknesses, but his playmaking and incredibly unique jungle makes him really fun to play. He is great for anyone looking for a different style of gameplay that you cannot see in any other jungler.